Hello everyone, and welcome to a brand new LP. I'm PA, I'm going to be hosting the whole thing. We may have guest hosts throughout, but I'm going to be here regardless. So, we're going to be playing Lost Kingdoms, a game released by Activision and developed by FromSoft, but first we're going to have a cutscene, so I'm going to be quiet a moment. Alright, so I hope you enjoyed that. Lost Kingdoms tried very hard to be a very exciting fantasy RPG, and to an extent they succeeded when they created it back in '02 for the GameCube. That said, it does have its failings, and most of them come from the fact that it's not a very complex game. That said, I do love the battle system, so let's go ahead and get started. Our main character is just going to be named Katia. We can rename her, but I'm not going to be, because I would inevitably just end up calling her the same thing. Now, we have more exposition here, but I'm not going to actually stop talking for this one because it's just text scrolling. And basically, the world has been enveloped by a strange black fog that adventurers are disappearing into without any sort of trace. If that sounds at all familiar, it's because it's very similar to the plot of Demon's Souls, which was also made by FromSoft. That said, the combat system between the two is definitely pretty different. So, the 5 kingdoms that were once disjointed, kind of not quite at arms with each other, but just doing a no-interaction pact sort of thing, are finally forced to get together to try to deal with this black fog that's, settling upon the land. Not really the greatest situation. So we open in a strange-looking castle with a smoky skybox. Now, the skybox is never outright stated, but I'm pretty sure it's actually supposed to be a manifestation of the black fog within the game. So our protagonist is Princess Katia, who is reacting appropriately to the fact that a world-destroying fog is at her doorstep. With the screen going white, we are now in a flashback in which we are flashing back to our father telling us that he has to go try to destroy the black fog, but if anything ever happens, take the Runestone and run for safety. What's the Runestone? We don't know yet. Presumably a stone with runes on it. So you can talk to any and all of these guards, and I'm pretty sure most of them have individual dialogue. I only speak to 2, and it's all just very generic, but it's one of those little touches that goes into the game that kind of goes to show something that FromSoft always really wanted to with their games, which is that everybody is unique within these worlds. In Dark Souls, they kind of handle this by making less people, but within Lost Kingdoms, even when they have to use the same model for lack of disk space, they're still able to do a bit with it. So once we head down here, we're going to go to the treasure room in which a single unlocked chest holds the magical Runestone. That's it floating in the air there. Now, the Runestone, for some reason, decides to attach itself to our protagonist as a headband. It's never explained if this was just a matter of her upbringing or if it was designed to be a stylish hairpiece, but the bottom line is that it works with her character design and it matches her outfit. So, we get a strange voice telling us to unleash the power of the cards, at which point, a strange card appears from the sky, and we are able to summon a Birdman to destroy one of these skeletons that has appeared as a side effect of the black fog. The other one, the Birdman is not going to help us with. So, welcome to the combat screen. You're dealt a deck, and with this deck you'll be dealt 4 random cards. The cards are mapped to A, B, X, and Y, and it's all very natural and organic, and it feels great to play. But it's not that complex. That said, it does actually provide a very good battle system, and the battle system is pretty much the only thing that I'm unequivocally in love with about this game. I think that it's a ton of fun. So enemies' HP is displayed below them, as well as their element, which we'll learn more about later. Our HP and our mana is displayed in the top left, and of course the minimap is in the top right. So once we destroy this skeleton, taking minimal damage, we're going to wander out here and see some strange old crone in a large back-worn... I'm not even sure what it's supposed to be. It's like horns? So once again, we meet a person who tells us that they're the person that we need to talk to if we want to live. However, Gerd is nice enough to give us her name. At the end of every level, you're ranked based on how well you did in the stage, and I managed to get all 3 Birdmen on the card selection. But depending on how you're ranked, you will get more bonus cards at the end of the level. There are 6 bonus cards. There'll usually be 1 rare, 2 medium, and 3 common cards. In this case, the rare was the skeleton, the medium was the fairy, and the common was the Birdman. The chance of getting all the commons is fairly low, but such things will happen. So, this is just giving us the basics of deck progression. We can make a deck of up to 30 cards, which we'll then be able to carry into the field with us. In our case, we don't really have too much. We only have the 3 extra Birdmen if we wanted to add that to the deck. But I'm not a big fan of Birdmen, so I'm not going to be doing that. Actually, I'm not a big fan of any of the bonus cards for the first level. So, for the very beginning of the game, we're going to need to learn to control this new power that we have. So we're going to talk to Gerd here in the Plains of Roal. Now, what the loose backstory is for our abilities here is that the Guardians of the Runestone, that is to say the royal families presumably, have the ability to control cards of power, which are actual monsters and other entities controlled through and within cards. If that makes any sense. Think like Pokeballs, but more papery. So, there are chests scattered all over the levels, and they'll generally have a card in them, or an item we'll learn more about later. Collectibles, basically. But as you can see, Gerd is just going to teleport in front of us to give us the basics of what's going on. Considering we already managed to fight without any instruction, you'd think that maybe this wasn't as necessary, but FromSoft apparently was still in there we're okay with tutorials phase. So our first enemy is a hobgoblin, and the first card type I'm going to be explaining is weapon cards. If you use a weapon card, it does a single strike, with you remaining on the field, but the monster also appearing to swing. And then, let's just take another look at that fight to look at a different type of card, because there are 3 of them. The second type of card is independent cards. Independent cards are just throw them and forget them. You don't need to worry about them once they're on the field, they'll just do their own thing. There are 2 types to this, roaming monsters and traps, but for now we'll just worry about roaming monsters. Like this Mandragora here. The Mandragora actually is probably a bad choice against the Hobgoblin given elemental matchup, but we don't technically know about that yet, so it's fine. Also, after every battle you will get experience points for your monsters, based on the number of magic crystals you collect, which we'll learn about later, and based on, which monsters got the kills. The last type of card is summon cards. Summon cards are generally exceptionally powerful and have long animations. In the case of the Lycanthrope here, it does a large sweeping strike to a bunch of enemies at once. It is wood elemental, however, so it doesn't manage to kill the Hobgoblin in one hit, which is unfortunate. So once you've killed your very first monster, you're able to continue down the path and immediately encounter a second fight. Now, here is where magic stones are explained. If you look at the top left of our screen, you'll see our magic power. Using our magic power, we are able to cast the cards. Each card has a different value of mana that you need. But, whenever you hit an enemy with an attack, they will release some of these magic stones. And if you collect magic stones, you replenish your mana. Now, I think I'm about to demonstrate another mechanic here. Yeah, there we are, capturing. If you hold L and then throw a card with the associated button, the card will deal minimal damage to an opponent, but if doing this deals the killing blow, the monster disappears in a flash of light and doesn't drop any magic crystals. I should note that actually hitting an enemy with a capture does not drop any magic crystals either, and it immediately burns the card. But if you capture a creature, you get its card for use later. So you want to lower its HP first and then throw the Pokeball. Anyway, the path to the left is proper progression, so we're going to stop off here with these two warriors, who have gotten quite far away from the castle. We're technically in the Black Fog right now, so these guys are moderate badasses for managing to get this far. We find another hobgoblin in a chest, and this is a common thing that they'll give you cards for the actual stage you're in. But hobgoblins aren't very useful, so that's kind of a pity for this stage. Anyway, so we have one chest over here, which is going to give us yet another card. In this case, it's just another man trap, the independent card we saw earlier. And there are little pillars with instructions on them, but they just tell us what Gerd is telling us, so if you ever need a refresher. So Gerd is telling us about the elemental matchup. If you want the easy way to look at this, look at the top left of the screen. Around our mana, the count of 10, you'll see that there is a leaf, a boulder, a water droplet, and a flame. If you go clockwise, that's the elemental weakness. Grass beats earth, earth beats water, water beats fire, fire beats grass. Very simple. Now, elemental weakness is actually fairly important to note, but I'm actually going to postpone that for a second here while I talk about something unique about Lost Kingdoms. Destructible terrain is nothing new to games, but Lost Kingdoms is notable for doing it within instanced arenas. If you destroy a piece of terrain within an instanced arena, it will stay destroyed in the main world. Which is pretty cool, and I like it. I think it's a nice touch. This does lead to some frustrating circumstances where you're trying to engage in a fight to be able to knock over some barrels, but overall it works alright. So if you destroy this caravan here, underneath it you'll find a free card. In this case, a mummy. Now, usually cards that are hidden like this are cards that are slightly rarer to get, or cards that you might not see otherwise, but in the case of the mummy, it's actually pretty much both. We're not going to see any mummies for a while, if at all. So, and this is a deck point. We're going to be seeing these everywhere. They're basically health and mana restore stations, but the cool thing about this is if you've captured a creature and then you go to a deck point, the deck point will actually allow you to put any creatures you've captured within the level into your deck. If that makes sense. It doesn't allow you to put in cards that you have outside. Like, cards you have in your pack, you're not able to use. But anything you've actively found or captured within your current stage, you're able to better use, I suppose? I'm not entirely sure what the in-story explanation for it is, but you have it on hand, so you might as well use it. If you're using a lot of cards to capture and you're starting to run out, putting new cards might not be the worst move. So, as you can see, we just used the mummy there. This is a side effect of the cards you use, or the cards you put into your deck at a deck station will always show up at the top of your deck as well. Like, there's no shuffling. They just show up right on top there. So, might as well. Now, as Gerd is telling us, we're about to find the boss fight of this level, and I am very sorry about this level being so tutorial heavy, but I promise, the game opens up a bit after this. We could go to the boss fight, but there is one more hidden item and a hidden fight that we have to visit first. Now, this wasn't actually my primary recording, so my deck is a little bit better than it was at this point, but this is a rare monster for this area called a venom lizard. Venom lizards are the cousins of the lizard men that we've been using in our deck, the ones over on the X button I actually just captured it with, who have the side effect of being able to poison you. Poison is one of the 6 status conditions in this game, and is one of the most irritating since your character does not just get damaged from poison, she flinches whenever the poison damage occurs. So it is just incredibly painful. But yeah, so we got a brand new Venom Lizard. It's a pretty good card, and I will be putting it in my deck. But it's more just a matter of there's usually one rare monster, and in the case of this level, the Venom Lizard is it. The last card we find over there is a Mandragora, and as you might have noticed after that fight, I threw a lot of capture cards, so we're starting to run out of cards. I don't think I'll be able to take the boss in this state, so one of the built-in mechanics that's never really explained is aborting missions. If you abort a mission, you return to the world map with all the experience, cards, captures, everything that you had. You can edit your deck freely, you can go back into the level, you can put in all the new cards that you got. Any chest that you've opened or any cards off the ground that you've picked up will remain gone, but enemies will respawn, as will, unfortunately, Gerd. She's going to give you the tutorial every single time you go through the tutorial stage. So, once we've finally fought our way through all the monsters and back to the exit, with our new deck, naturally, we're going to go ahead and find the boss arena. This is the Sand Golem, the boss of level 1. The Sand Golem has a large range spinning attack that it will use whenever it tunnels through the ground. It's also flanked by 3 hobgoblins which have the ability to poison you. In this instance of the boss fight, that regrettably did happen. Still, if you can manage to group them all up, the lycanthrope will deal moderate amounts of damage, especially so to the boss if you can manage to catch him with the attack, since it is wood element and the boss is earth element. But one of the main things about the boss arena that actually makes this fight a little bit easier for the beginning of the game is that there are explosive barrels everywhere that will in fact take out the boss and his minions fairly quickly. But the boss has a crippling weakness to mandragoras, so if you throw a few of those on the field you should be fine. As you saw there, it just reduced him from about 80 health to nothing? So, once you complete the stage, you're graded on how many monsters you killed, how many battles you engaged in, and how much damage you took. The rare card for this stage is the Sand Golem, and unlike the first stage, I will be replaying these stages to always get the boss card if I can help it. So, that's been episode 1. Again, very tutorial heavy, don't worry, we start getting into more gameplay into the next episode. But for now, you've got the basics of combat down and the basics of the cards. So, thanks for watching, this has been PA, and I'll see you all in the next episode.